Alright, so the next section is our, we're moving on to page 8 of the instructions, and it's part 4, and it's to do with the suspension. And what we need is bag D, and so it's got all our arms and all our other little bits and pieces in there. So we'll whip that open. The sway bars, we'll put them just off to the side for the moment. And pins and ball ends, blade cups, axles. So what we're going to do is just go through and just tidy up all these plastics. There is a fair bit of flashing on these that's going to have to come off. We're going to want to pay particular attention to areas in here at the end. Just check in where our pins go as well, just to make sure they're all clean. So I'm going to go through and just clean all those up, and we'll come back once that's all done. Alright guys, we're back here just still completing these suspension arms. I just wanted to just note one thing to the newcomer, that these parts in here, these are not they're not needed. They're part where the injection of the plastic goes in. So we've got to take those out, because what will happen is these C-hubs end up sitting down in there. So obviously you can see that they're not going to go into position if they're there. So just cut them out. If you're using the hobby knife, just be careful. You don't want to cut down. If you slip, you're gonna probably damage this fairly thin section down here. What I probably suggest is just get a pair of scissors, just snip off the main part. And then very carefully, and watching your fingers, trim down this way. That way, if you slip, you're only hitting down into this part, which is very thick. Okay, so that's just about done there now. Just got to get the back part off. I just found just break it off like that on the bench, and just a quick once over with the knife. Alright, and the same with your hubs. Just go around, any of those flashings need to come off. The rest of the arms are all done, ready to go. They're really nice. This is actually quite a nice plastic, actually. Really hard carbon. So really good quality stuff in the kit. And alright, let's proceed to putting these hubs and whatnot together. So the pretty cool thing about these C-hubs on this particular car is that instead of having different degree caster built into the C-hub, we have this unique insert system. So we can change the caster from 2, 4 or 6 degrees depending on what we require with our setup. So it means that you just basically keep the same C-hubs, and yeah, you can just quickly swap these inserts in and out. So standard is 4, so that's the middle one, and you might be able to see on the camera, there is actually a little number 4 cast into the piece, so you can identify that. There's a little bit of flashing to clean off that. That's one of them cleaned up. And then we'll just get this other one off the parts tree. Alright, so what we're going to do is just put those inserts into the C-hub. And what that does mean with the insert is that the C-hubs are universal, so there's not a left and a right until we actually put the insert in. So we're going to do that now. Now what you're going to want to do is we're going to be putting that in, and they are actually a slight oval shape. we're putting it in from the front. So this would be the front left, and what we're going to do is put it in so that the thicker part is facing to the top. Apologies, that's actually the front. That's the front right. Apologies. And then same with the other side, thicker part to the top. Just push that in. And we should really just put a little dab of CA on that, just to make it a bit more permanent. As you can see in the manual, they recommend just to put a little dab on there. I'm not going to do that for now. I'm going to install some graphite parts later on in the next little video that we do. So now we've basically got our front suspension sorted. So that's our front right, and then this will be our, apologies, that's our front left, and that's our front right. So the back of the arm has the ball for the sway bar to mount to. Okay guys, moving on now to part 10. It's the front hub carrier and arm assembly, continuation on from when we just did those C-hubs. So we've now got the bag with all the drive shafts in it. We're going to put those together next. So get those out. There's going to be a few small parts in here, so you're going to want to be careful. There's a couple of quite small grub screws that will be easily lost. Okay, so we've got some steel front CVDs. These guys here, this is for the front, and then these alloy ones are for the rear. And we've got our little barrels and the rest of the little bits and pieces. Alright, so we've got one of these drive shafts together. I'm just going to just run through one more, and then it's basically just a repeat process for the rest. Again, so just reminding everyone, we've got a flat on our cross pin, and that's for our little grub screw to sit into. So we've got a hole through to the other side, straight across. All we're going to do is just put our drive shaft end on, and then I'm going to slide the pin through. So it helps when you've pre-lined up the hole in the little barrel. Alright guys, I'm just going to run through one more of these quickly. This is our drive shafts. I'm just going to quickly just do one more, just make it a little bit clearer. Okay, so we've got our little barrel in there, our grub screws on top. When we put this pin across, we've got a ground flat on it, and we want that flat to sit underneath this grub screw, so the grub screw tightens down onto the flat. So simple process. Just going to rest the out drive on there, and then we should be able to just push the pin all the way through, like so, and then we can just tighten down on our grub screw. I like to just work it just a little bit, just to make sure that the flat does come underneath the grub screw. And there you have it. We've got a CVD that's built up, ready to go. These are nice steel out drives, you know, they're not going to twist. They've been nicely lightened as well by you know, grinding the sides out of the cups. We don't want any unnecessary weight in the car. So another nice job there by Destiny, getting that one sorted out. And just do a double check once you've done it all up tight. You just want to make sure that the end of the pins, you know, it's not grossly misaligned to one side or something like that, or it's going to pull through. All right, I'm going to assemble these other two, and then we'll move on to the next part of the build. All right, guys, here we go. We're going to get these drive shafts into the hubs, get the hubs mounted on the arms, and yeah, then we should have a fair bit of the rolling drivetrain done. So I'm just going to break out this bag. We're going to need a few little bits and pieces out of here in the immediate term. So we're going to bust that open, and I'm going to just plonk most of those parts just up the back here on my setup board. There is some very small grub screws in this packet as well that you're going to have to keep an eye on. Those of you that have the nicely machined out setup boards, that's where that's going to come in handy right now. So just a bit of sorting here. First thing we're going to do is mount our steering hubs into our C-hubs. Noting the orientation, the hubs themselves are universal, left and right, but we do need to make sure that when we put them in, that where our steering arm mounts is on the same side as our sway bar. Otherwise we're going to have some problems when we go to try and fit everything else on. Okay, so we've got, it's the right hand, this is our left hand. And what we're going to need out of here is there's some cylindrical bushes. So these are our, what's called a kingpin bush. So there should be 4 of these up here. And there's the other one. Yep. So we're gonna need those. And we're gonna need our ball studs, and we're going to need some washers out of this bag as well. So break this open now. Alright, so back to this. I was just confirming, so we need our M3, just like a button head or a round head. So M3 by 8. We need our 4 collars. We need our 2 top ball studs. And then that's what's going to allow us to mount this together. So no grease in here, obviously no Loctite, we're just plastic into plastic. So you've got to be careful doing this particular job, because it's quite easy to make screw this and then have it all kicked out or really wonky. So what a trick that I've learnt to do is actually to find a pin. That one's probably a little bit too large. Maybe one of these 2.5s would be ideal. So we'll put the bush in and we'll just temporarily just shove that pin in there, just to give it something to locate onto, just until we get this top stud started. And then we'll get the bottom one in as well. So we want to make sure that everything's going in nice and square and straight. So if we look at it from both sides, we can get a pretty good indication as to what's going on. And at the moment that's not going in particularly straight. So if you flip it 90 and it looks square there, and you flip it back 90 again and it looks square there, chances are that we're on the right track. So I'm not going to go any further on the top, but what I will do is put the bush in the bottom and then grab one of our M8s, and then I'm going to get this little guy started in here. So from here on it's probably pretty hard to get these screws going and crooked, but again, just always just pay particular attention, make sure they're all going in square. We want this to be nice, the C-hub to be nice and free on our steering. So I'm just going to finish that one off a bit and go into the top. Now we can do these up tight because the Kingpin bushes are manufactured a set length, so that they're designed for these screws to actually do up tight on them, but then it still leaves enough enough sort of gap or end float there that our hub can still move nice and free. As you can see, if it's done right, it definitely, with the screws tight, should be able to just flop down like that. You can also check it for, you know, a bit of play. There's a tiny little bit of movement there up and down, but generally you'll find that a little bit of movement like that is better than having it bind up. So a little bit of play is not too bad a thing. So I'll just quickly go ahead and do this other side.